Okay, what's up, folks? Rich Van Tassel with you. It's late Saturday, February 4th, 2017. Wasn't even going to do this video. I completely forgot that this was going on, but we just saw that Terrell Owens did not, I repeat, did not make the Hall of Fame for the second straight year. I think it's ridiculous. We're going to get into this. I was thinking about doing the video because a few weeks ago you had the Baseball Hall of Fame and all that, but I haven't really followed baseball that much. But, there's the issues there with the voting, there's the issues here with the voting. Quickly with the baseball, the steroid stuff. I'm not even going to get into whether or not I think people with steroids should get in, because I do. Because I could take steroids right now. I'm not hitting a baseball. I'm not even hitting one home run. But that's besides the point. It's the voters thinking that they're the ones who are the arbiters of what's right, what's wrong, the media, and all those sort of things. That's what's really bothering me, and especially since half the time it's not even consistent. It's just who they like and who they don't like. They'll make up a rule, that they'll apply to in TO in this case, but they won't apply to someone else. For example, LaDainian Tomlinson made it into the Hall of Fame. Jason Taylor as well. Those were, I guess, the two headliners, I'd say. Now, I'm not saying either one of them is not deserving, because they are, but you can't tell me that Terrell Owens is not deserving, because he is. And I'm going to get into, what I think of Terrell Owens' game altogether. Of course, I'm a Cowboys fan. He played for the Cowboys, whatever. I'll let you all make the comments on that if you choose. But the biggest knock on Terrell Owens is, he's destroyed teams. He hasn't won anything. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We know what happened in Philadelphia. Whatever, this, that, and the other thing. Let's look at LaDainian Tomlinson, however. LaDainian Tomlinson never won a Super Bowl, never even made the Super Bowl. Jason Taylor never won a Super Bowl. I don't even know how many times Jason Taylor made the playoffs in his career. Of course, you had Philadelphia, as we said. You had things that soured in San Francisco. You had the Dallas situation. Of course, I'll get back into all that in a moment. But LaDainian Tomlinson, what was it, 2007 AFC Championship game, got hurt, didn't come back into that game against the New England Patriots, who were undefeated at the time. Of course, they lost the Super Bowl to the New York Giants afterwards for the first loss. Tomlinson, it was, you had Philip Rivers playing with what I believe was a torn ACL. Michael Turner was getting the bulk of the carries in that game. It showed Tomlinson on the sideline with his helmet on, the visor, all that stuff. People making such a big deal out of that. Of course, LaDainian Tomlinson has always been regarded as a great teammate, great citizen. I believe that as well. I'm not saying that's not the case, but would To have not come back into a game, with what was not that serious of an injury? You had a guy playing with a torn ACL. I don't know, and it's just, and even Tomlinson took heat for that. I just don't understand, what is worse for a team, a guy who's, you know, wants the ball. These are all professional players. I don't think it makes that big of an issue as people want to make it seem. I think the media is looking for reasons to, hype these things up and all that. But I just, I see a bit of a double standard. Jason Taylor, he could never even take his teams into the playoffs. So a guy who's a good citizen but hardly ever make. I mean, when did Jason Taylor go? Maybe 3 times in his career. And I don't even know when Taylor started, but his teams were not doing anything. So yeah, a guy is excitable, flamboyant, as opposed to a guy who's not. One guy goes to the playoffs, another guy does not. Remember, To did go to a Super Bowl. Of course, he didn't play in the playoffs that year, but he has had big playoff games. He had a few big playoff games I can remember as a 49er, and that's how we'll transition into Terrell Owens. People want to say he's destroyed teams, all these things. Whatever happened in Philadelphia, I think he was getting bad advice. I think, I think he handled things very poorly in Philadelphia. I'm not going to say otherwise. As far as Dallas, I just think there's a lot of turmoil in Dallas. There's a lot of things that I could see would upset a guy like To. I'm not going to excuse his behavior, but it wasn't even all that bad. Remember, they got smoked. The last game To played in Dallas was when they got pounded by the Eagles 44-6 in the last game of the season. They brought in a guy like Pac-Man Jones that year before Pac-Man had really turned it around. So there were a lot of things going on with that Dallas team. But let's look at the 49ers. If people remember, Yeah, he just did destroy the 49ers the day he left. They got into the playoffs, I believe 2002, 2003 was his last year. They went to the playoffs in 2002. He had a big game and a big comeback for any of those who remember that far against the New York Giants. The Giants were winning that game by a lot. Terrell Owens was huge. They came back, won the game. And then they didn't make the playoffs the next year, and then after that, he was gone. San Francisco was terrible, and I mean terrible, for years after Terrell Owens left. And it's one of the things, I don't know why people kill a guy like Jerry Jones. This is another topic for another day, but San Francisco has been awful ownership wise since then. Is a lot of that to do with why they're not, why they had been terrible? You get a guy like, they were awful. They get a guy like Hardball, they do well, then they run Hardball out of town. They're terrible. Now, does that have a lot to do with why they got bad as opposed to Terrell Owens? Sure. But still, you have to look at it that way. He wasn't destroying that team. That was a very pedestrian team that Terrell Owens was on, that he was carrying, because he was just dominant at that time. Jeff Garcia had played pretty well, but to to discredit what he did in San Francisco was ridiculous. Dallas, he had big years. Was he the reason they lost to the Giants that year? They went 13-3. I don't know. Remember, he played in that game that they lost to the Seahawks where Romo had the bad snap. I mean, I don't remember Terrell Owens causing any problems those years. Things happen. Things happen all the time. You just look at Odell Beckham Jr. this year. These are the things that happen. Now, why is it ridiculous that T.O. is not in the Hall of Fame? You could make a case that Terrell Owens is the best wide receiver ever. The more I think about it, the more I do lean to that. I know Jerry Rice is great. Jerry Rice has all these numbers, but you look at the guys that T.O. has had at quarterback. Jeff Garcia, Tony Romo, Donovan McNabb, of course. Then, he had Carson Palmer for a little bit. Ryan Fitzpatrick was his quarterback, and I guess that's it. I don't, and whoever else played. Buffalo, I think, yes, Trent Edwards spent some time there, but I really can't think of anyone else for that Buffalo team. But yeah, you had some, good quarterbacks, some borderline potential Hall of Famers. I don't think Garcia will ever make it. Romo would probably be the one who's closest to making the Hall of Fame. I don't think McNabb will ever make it. But look at the post to Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice played with Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Owens did play with Steve Young towards the end there for a very little bit. But Joe Montana, Steve Young, Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon probably won't make the Hall of Fame, but I'd say Rich Gannon is right there with Tony Romo as far as the top quarterbacks. And of course, Steve Young and Joe Montana are better than all these guys. And Jerry Rice played a bit longer. Not to say that T.O. didn't, but Jerry Rice played for a long time. So the numbers are ridiculously there, and I don't get why the media is keeping them out just to put a guy like a LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, Kevin Mawai was getting votes. For those of you who don't even know who Kevin Mawai is, I probably wouldn't know who Kevin Mawai is unless I lived here in New Jersey, which I do. He used to play center for the Jets. You're putting this guy, I mean, I don't think he made it, but you're putting this guy, giving him votes, and you're going to deny Terrell Owens? I just don't get it. I don't see how it's good guys, but on teams that didn't win, as opposed to flamboyant guys and teams who didn't win. But at the end of the day, the numbers for Terrell Owens, there's no question. Like, you can't you can't keep him out. Michael Irvin, one of the reasons I'm a Cowboys fan, is a guy whose numbers, when you look at Irvin's numbers, aren't even that great. I mean, let's be honest. Irvin has 65 touchdowns, 700 some odd receptions, and is in the Hall of Fame. And of course, he had his problems getting in. He was doing drugs. There was all the thing with Eric Williams where they were forcing a cheerleader to do a porn video at gunpoint. The cocaine, his 30th birthday, they found him, lying on the floor with cocaine all over him, with hookers around. I mean, like, I don't get it. And yes, that, to say, to use that analogy when you're saying Michael Irvin, you're talking about a guy who didn't make the Hall of Fame at one point. So okay, I see it in some regards, but I don't know. I think it's not the place for these Hall of Fame voters to arbitrate on a guy who wasn't getting in trouble, and basically just his demeanor with the teams. And to say that he was destroying his teams, I don't even buy into it for the most part. I think it's ridiculous, and it's very disappointing. So we'll see what happens next year with Terrell Owens. But the longer this happens, the more and more precedent gets set that he may be out for a while. So I shouldn't say I feel bad for Terrell Owens. I certainly this guy has probably made more money and slept with 100 more women than I'll ever get to see in my lifetime. So I can't feel bad for him, but I certainly, don't think that this is right. And I don't think that the voters, as I said, should be the arbiters of what goes on and who makes the Hall of Fame, and or just the arbiters of people's demeanor or things like that. So let's see what happens. But again, Terrell Owens did not make the Hall of Fame. So remember to stay tuned tomorrow. We got the NBA reports coming up. And of course, we got to do the recap of the Super Bowl when that goes final. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Remember, we appreciate all subscriptions as well. So if you do that, I'd be very much thankful to you. So we'll see you next time and take care. Have a good one.